Today is Saturday, March 28th, and we're doing a masterclass Facebook Live. Oh, hi Jane, thank you. And today we're actually going to be talking about unlocking energy with the secrets of nature. And I know that maybe that sounds a little bit mysterious. I'll explain in a moment what we're talking about. Feel free, of course, to share this video with anyone you think that could use this information. We will still be here Monday to Friday at 4 o'clock to do our Facebook Lives. We'll do just popping in to give a few tips to help you navigate that life around quarantine and try to encourage you to continue to improve and invest in your health during this difficult time. Every Saturday, we're going to be doing what we're doing today, which is a deep dive into one particular topic. And that's going to be every Saturday, and that's at noon. Before I dive into today's topic, I really wanted to just thank you for the feedback that we've been getting with our Facebook Lives. Thank you. We're so glad that we're able to do this, and we're so glad that that you're getting some value out of this. We feel really strongly that this is something that we want to do. We want to be of service to you right now, and we're really glad that we're able to support you at this time. If you've been watching some of our Facebook Lives, what is one thing that you've incorporated into your quarantine life from these Facebook Lives? Can you please write that in your comments right now so I can see that? I would love to just hear what you're picking up and how you're incorporating this information. One of the things that I love about being able to do this is naturopathic medicine is so much about educating our patients and providing all these tools, these skills that patients can do from home. So this is such a great opportunity, I think, to be able to do that. And certainly my mission is to help my patients build this toolbox over time so that we're using these tools as almost like daily doses of self-care. And really, those are the things that transform our health in the future. So I'm really happy that we can do this today. All right. Just making sure that everybody can see, and okay. Flavia Grace, yes, turning off the router and stop using electronics at 8 p.m. every night is what she's doing to incorporate some of these healthy tips. That is such a good one. I am going to touch on a little bit of that today as well, because I think what you're talking about here is circadian rhythm and quality of sleep. And this is such an important part of health, so many different body systems. So that's such a good one. That's something that I definitely put a lot of time investing into improving my day and night cycle, particularly sleep. So I love that. Thank you. Okay, so what am I talking about when I'm saying unlocking energy with the secrets of nature? Now, let me give you a little bit of background on this, because fatigue and energy, that's definitely a topic that's near and dear to my heart. After graduating from naturopathic medical school, I passed all my board exams. I came back home. I was surrounded by family and friends again. And in my familiar environment, I had less physical and emotional demands. But that's when I went from having lots of energy to just feeling exhausted. And I had a hard time with sleep. I had issues with mood. I seemed to be catching every cold that was going around. And I actually felt more stressed during that time than I did in that physically demanding and mentally demanding program from the past 5 years. So that was for me a really important instigating factor that started me on this journey of trying to build the knowledge and investigate where fatigue and where energy comes from. And this study has really taken me all over. So it's taken me from the smallest little cellular level, so looking at even hidden pathogens like yeast and mold and fungus, to the hidden cell toxicities that are pretty common, to how the mitochondria, so how your energy actually produces cells, and then all the way to the big macro level where we're looking at hormone imbalances and even attitudes and perspectives, and the rhythm of life. So it's taking me from these very microcellular level all the way to the macro. And what I wanted to do today was take all of that knowledge and distill it to what I think are the most important things that we can do for all types of fatigue. It's what we can do in our daily lives to support and encourage the energy production. I hope that makes sense. What I've definitely noticed with this study is that energy and vitality depends on the health of course, the whole system, but also the individual cells. So in all of the micro and macro levels and everything in between, these all have to work together to make the whole system work and to make us feel energetic. So what I wanted to share are those three, what I think are the top three things that I've encountered in my study that I think can be applied right now during this quarantine time, and that integrates everything on those levels from the cell all the way to the whole body. So let me just give you a little bit, maybe a summary of what we're going to talk about, and then we'll go into each one of those. Okay, so first we're going to be talking about cooking energetically. And then we're going to be talking about calming stress. So we've talked about this before, but this is something that's just so important. And I want to give some concrete tips on just how to do this on a daily life. And then strengthening the circadian rhythms, something that we've talked about before also, but we're really going to dive into all of those areas today. So cooking energetically, let's start there. What do I mean by that? So when our energy is low in our body, when we feel fatigued, one of the quickest ways we can actually boost energy is through getting that energy from our food. And I'm not necessarily talking about the proteins or fats or carbs here. What I'm talking about here is more of the heat of the food, the temperature of the food. So let me back up. In Chinese medicine, the digestive system is thought of as a fire or a burner in our abdomen. And that fire burns up the food that we eat. And that's how it's actually breaking it down and absorbing it. So when that fire is weak, our food isn't properly broken down. And that causes that indigestion. And what makes it even worse is if we're eating food that actually weakens that fire, it can lead to further indigestion and then fatigue, even feeling heavy in the body, in our limbs. We do tend to feel cold as well, and then even have that white or even black coat on the tongue. Those are all some signs that the digestive fire might be a little bit weak. So if this sounds familiar to you, in this case, what you want to do is avoid things that weaken that fire. So cold foods, raw foods. We're often told that salads and green smoothies are so healthy, and they can be. But for weak digestive fire, these can actually cause more digestive issues and more fatigue. So avoiding things that are raw and cold, like salads and green smoothies. Also drinks cold water, choosing maybe room temperature or warm water instead. There are other foods that can dampen the fire as well. And this is based more on the energetics of the food rather than the actual temperature. So these are like dairy or soy products. These could be excess sugar, that includes fruit or excess fruit juices. And excess refined carbohydrates like white bread can also dampen that fire. So what do you eat instead? So instead, we're choosing warmer foods, soups, steamed vegetables, stir fries, stir-fried vegetables, warming herbs. So these are things like mustard. I have some mustard seed here just to show you. I wonder if you can see that. Let me know if you can't see that. So mustard seed, there's different herbs like cinnamon or turmeric. Here's turmeric, which is a beautiful yellow color. So all of these are more warming to our system. You know what cinnamon looks like. There's one here. These kind of yellowish, brownish warming herbs. And then, of course, ginger is another one that is a great warming herb as well. All right. Try not to get turmeric on my computer. Horseradish is another one that I don't have with me today, but that's another one that can be really warming. And in this way, you can really adjust your whole meal to be balanced to the warmth that you require. So what I mean by that is it doesn't mean that you can't have any salads at all, but if you do have some salad, keep that to a smaller portion and then choose some maybe soup and have some ginger in that soup. So that balances out that cold and with the warmer foods, if that makes sense. So what you want to be listening for your body is that it feels comfortable and easy to digest and that you feel warm afterwards. Also, look at your energy levels. If you feel like you need to have a nap after your meal, that was probably too much cold there, or just eating too much all at once. So it's just really too much food for your weak fire to be able to burn up and break down. So what we want to do is use these foods, warming herbs, warming vegetables to help to stoke up that fire a little bit more. I know that Western diets often equate healthy foods with raw foods. So a lot of people who are trying to be health conscious and trying to get lots of vegetables in end up having a lot of salads. And this can work for some people, of course. But if you're experiencing fatigue, then just take the same vegetables that you're having, adjust the heat balance. You might want to cook that, add a little bit of heat in there, and likely you'll feel the difference. I've had so many women tell me that just doing this change to their meals have dramatically improved their digestion and their energy levels, and pretty quickly as well. So this can make a gigantic difference without actually changing what you're eating. It's just how you're doing it, how you're seeing that temperature balance in your meal. All right, I hope that makes sense. I'm just going to move to the next section here. If you have any questions about cooking energetically, supporting your digestive fire, or if that makes sense and it's something you want to try, leave me a comment here, let me know. All right, the next part here is about calming stress. What does calming stress have to do with unlocking energy? Our bodies, we know how our ability to thrive really is linked to our mental state. We know that when we feel safe and secure in our body, then we're able to feel relaxed. And when we're in that relaxed state, we can perform all of those rebalancing and regenerative type of functions, right? The ability to repair body tissues, to make sustained energy, to feel calm, to think clearly, basically feel strong and resilient. So what we're essentially feeling, that safety, security, or some sense of control, really affects our physiology and how we're able to make energy. So what determines how we feel? What determines how secure we feel? That's going to be how we're thinking. Now, a lot of people think, well, it's determined on what's going on in our environment, and certainly that can have an influence on how we feel. we're definitely feeling that now with some of the things happening around us, with the quarantine, with the stats that we're hearing about, with the changes in our lives, with the uncertainty ahead. All of that brings brings a lot of that nervousness and anxiety, maybe fear. But a lot of what we're actually feeling has to do more with how we're perceiving what's going on. And so that's what I want to be talking about today. Some of the most resilient people we know have had experiences that are hard for us to imagine, some of the worst environments we can possibly imagine. And so it wasn't the environment or how easy their lives were that made them resilient. I just finished reading the book, Man's Search for Meaning. So that's sort of at the top of my mind right now. That's written by Viktor Frankl. He's a Holocaust survivor talking about his experiences in the concentration camps. Something that is hard for me to even wrap my mind around how difficult that would be. But over and over again in his experiences, and in his book, he describes that we have that ability to choose to compare our experience to something that's better and then feel worse, or compare our experience to something that's worse and feel grateful for it. And that is something that we have a choice over. So certainly despite the incredible challenges that he had and experienced, chose very, very intentionally to choose gratitude with this. So right now we're kind of called to challenge ourselves to do the same type of practice with all of this uncertainty about the future right now. What I see often is with that uncertainty, a lot of thoughts go quickly to fear, fear of not having enough, fear of being isolated or alone. And that can quickly lead us to react to maybe buying excessive amounts of toilet paper or consuming endless hours of news more than we need to stay updated. So, of course, all of these different feelings that we have trigger physiological response, that danger or that trigger of fight or flight. And this is just as if we were being chased by a bear. All of these bursts of hormones turn on so that we can essentially run and survive. But what that also means is all these bursts of hormones turn off the body systems that repair our tissue, that make energy efficiently. And so we end up with this burst of energy that's usually super uncomfortable, maybe akin to having that adrenaline that you get from caffeine or sugar. It's energy, but it doesn't feel good. Your heart's beating faster. And over the long term, it's actually depleting our energy. Regularly practicing gratitude is an antidote to this. I know for my personal experience is whenever these kinds of difficult feelings come up, I immediately feel pulled to think about, to be scared, to start thinking about what can I do to make this better, trying to feel more control over what's happening. And to actually practice gratitude is the harder direction to go. It actually takes more effort to do this, to choose to do this intentionally. But also in my experience, it gets easier and easier to do. So I hope that I can give you a little bit of tips on just how to start that habit today. So you may have heard this quote that it's gratefulness that makes us happy, not the other way around. It's gratefulness that makes us happy, not the other way around. You heard that? We often think, of course, that we start out happy and therefore we feel thankful for things, but the intentional practice of feeling grateful is what contributes to making us feel happy and resilient. Some of the other benefits besides that mental and physical resilience. Gratitude helps to break that cycle of that monkey brain. It actually has shown in research to improve relationships and the ability to build new relationships as well. Definitely for me, I've noticed that it helps with a better quality of sleep. That's how I got into doing a gratitude practice. And then there's even research showing that people report less aches and pains when there's a regular practice of gratitude. So gratitude can really affect a lot of different things in our body and in our lives, and not just how we feel in the moment. Okay, so how do we practice gratitude so it can become a habit? Because it definitely is not my first reaction when things get tough to feel grateful for that moment. So, of course, one of the things is when somebody does something nice for us, we immediately feel gratitude most of the time. And this is a way, of course, that we can help each other to cultivate gratitude. And certainly this is a fantastic time to really take advantage of that. Maybe you have a little bit more time because you're not driving around, that you can call a friend or email somebody and just check in and see how they're doing and give them that gift that you're thinking about them. And you immediately get that feeling of gratitude instilled in them, but likely you'll feel that in yourself as well. Another way of doing this, though, that we can do very intentionally and daily, regardless of what's going on, is a gratitude journal. So here's mine right here. There's nothing special about my journal. It's just a notebook. But what I do is before bedtime, write down 1 or 2 things that I'm grateful for that day. And try to write something different every day. It doesn't matter if it's something that seems big or small. Let me just read you what I've got here. I'm grateful for a warm, comforting, and invigorating bath. Grateful for a quiet afternoon at home alone. So simple things like that. Right now, I could be grateful about big things, like I'm grateful for the doctors and nurses risking their health to care for our community. I'm grateful for this extra time to read this book that's been sitting on the shelf for ages. These kinds of things, it doesn't really matter what it is that you're writing in there. Just that we're really trying to train that muscle, right? To do this more consistently. That's what we're trying to do here. So we're trying to establish that habit and be able to recognize those opportunities, those opportunities in our day. And with that, we actually feel more and more abundance. That's really where it can be quite powerful. I like to do this before bedtime because this is a way that helps me sleep better. I don't know if some of you have a hard time with this, but sleep has been a struggle for me since I was a child. So it's something that I've been working with a lot. I'm also a night owl, so it's not natural for me to just kind of hit the pillow and fall asleep. I don't know how that happens. So it's something that I've studied a lot. And so gratitude journal is something that I do before bed because it helps me to just, first of all, focus all of that mental energy into something that's positive and something that makes me feel warm and cozy at night. Christy says, thanks for the reminder. I have to get back to doing this. Yes. And I need the reminders too. Sometimes I kind of veer off too, but I'm always so thankful when I'm able to just get back into that. And I do fall asleep easier when I do that. But another part, a great part of this is that when you can actually use this throughout the day. So some people actually do the journal when they first wake up in the morning and when they go to sleep. So those are nice times to do that. But during the middle of the day, I find it really helpful too, because during the middle of the day is generally when I'm triggered to sort of be like, ooh, what's this difficult feeling that I'm feeling? And, what do I do with this? Now, we have, Dr. Neetu has been talking about this, but there are a lot of things that we can do. But when it comes to gratitude practice, The question you want to ask when those difficult feelings arise is, what is the opportunity in this moment? What is the opportunity in this moment? Because the reality is that we can't be grateful for everything that happens, but we can be grateful for the opportunity in that moment. What I mean by that is, we can't be grateful if we just heard that our friend passed away. We can't be grateful for that, but we can be grateful for the opportunity to be able to reflect on this amazing friendship. That's the opportunity that we get in that moment. It feels a little bit like mental gymnastics to do that. And that's where the effort comes in. That's why we need to train that muscle. But there is an opportunity every moment. And that's what we don't want to be missing. That's what we want to recognize, train our minds to do. A lot of other ways of thinking about difficult things that come up is maybe that opportunity. Like right now, it's difficult for us to continue to do our jobs the way we've been doing them. But we're given right now the opportunity to practice patience, or the opportunity to challenge ourselves further. So this is what the thing that you can do, maybe as a cue, anytime a difficult feeling arises during your day. Think about, what is the opportunity in this moment right now? Now, one of the things about gratitude practice that I want to just make sure we point out is that it's not about ignoring our difficult feelings or forcing ourselves to stay positive. We're not trying to replace your negative feelings with positive feelings, or we're not trying to avoid that or sweep those negative feelings or thoughts under the rug. We have these difficult feelings that we understand. Hopefully we're moving to the step of understanding where those they're coming from with our thoughts. And we're also recognizing that there's an opportunity to feel thankful in that moment. This is a way to actually learn about ourselves and help us make healthy decisions about what to do next. Because I know that when we just feel difficult feelings and react with them or react from them, usually it's not a healthy decision that we're making after that. But we want to know, we want to feel those difficult feelings and feel grateful. And that will give us a better chance of making healthy decisions based on our values in the next step. So again, in my experience, it takes more effort to recognize those opportunities in the moment. So this is why this is called a practice. So just like brushing your teeth, which maybe at this point is pretty easy for you to do in your health routine, gratitude journaling is going to get easier and easier. In the beginning, you might want to make it a little bit extra pleasant. I think writing down 2 things that you're grateful for is actually a pretty pleasant experience, but you might want to just grab a notebook that's also a little bit extra cute, or use an extra special pen, make that whole experience more pleasant as well. So it really becomes a self-care routine. Any questions about that gratitude practice? Is anybody doing a gratitude practice now and want to share how they're doing that? Are you using a gratitude journal? Are you talking about it or sharing moments of gratitude with a friend? How are you practicing that? I'd love to know. Okay, lastly, we're going to be talking about how to make sure that all our systems are coordinated to produce and cultivate energy. So that's going to be our day and night rhythms. So I know that we've talked about a little bit of this here and there, for example, for the sleep talk, but I really want to just look at the whole, all of the cues that are involved with circadian rhythms, because this is one of those things that often gets missed when we go right into what's going on in the cell, or what's going on with the iron deficiency, or what's going on with the thyroid issue. The all our hormones are coordinated by our 24-hour day and night rhythm, right? So that's called our circadian rhythm. That coordinates our cortisol, so that's our stress hormone, or the hormone that wakes us up in the morning. It coordinates melatonin. It coordinates growth hormone, generally coming at night. Thyroid hormone, and even insulin is coordinated by our circadian rhythm. So supporting this has a massive impact on the whole system. And that's why this is definitely on my top 3 most important health factors to be working on every day, if not multiple times a day. Now, we know that we know what it feels like to go through jet lag, right? Where you feel fatigue and foggy headed. A lot of us, unfortunately, have a milder form of that jet lag every single day. And this is because there's a lot of things in our urban environment that can disrupt our circadian rhythm. And we've heard about this with lights and things like that. So I want to just make sure that we're really taking care of all of these disruptions and making them work for us in our modern life. These disruptions in circadian rhythms can be really disruptive to our long-term health. Insomnia is linked to this, depression is linked to this, chronic diseases like diabetes is linked to this. So this is something we definitely want to be looking at. Now, one of the questions that I get is, if the circadian rhythm is innate, if it's built in, then why do we need to do anything about it? It's already there. And this makes sense, but we actually still do need to reset our rhythm. I want to just share a little bit of this, maybe one of my favorite studies that I've read about. This is a study from the 70s where the researcher actually made himself a subject and lived in a cave for 127 days. So you can tell why the researcher had to be the subject himself. It was hard to get other people to do this. In this cave, he took all of the indicators of time, like light or clocks, out. So he was in the dark by himself with food and all the things that he needs to survive, but no indication of time or time of day even. And then he wanted to see just how powerful was that circadian rhythm based on when he chose to eat or when he chose to sleep. And what we saw from that study is that the circadian rhythm is very powerful. And generally, he did sleep and eat based on about a 24-hour cycle. However, it was not exactly 24 hours. It was 24 hours plus about 15 minutes. Of course, it changed every day, but about 24 hours and something, about 15 minutes. So it was always longer, though, than 24 hours generally. So you can imagine that over time, without the light signal or without the light cue, that means that you're going to be starting to get off from the actual 24-hour day. So yes, I think the studies show that the circadian rhythms and is very powerful. Even without the cue, they're still there. But we still need to reset them every single day. Otherwise, they will start to go off and will essentially have jet lag without flying. So that's why we're talking about some of these cues today. The most important cue there is for circadian rhythm is light. Definitely it's light. So that's why when we're talking about trying to get light in the morning, this is so important as a cue to your body that it's morning time, it's time to go. And all of your morning hormones are going to become more robust. So your energy levels generally will get higher during this time. I would consider maybe going for a short walk if you're able to do that safely right now with the quarantine, or even just often I'm just drinking tea and just going outside into the garden, or just something not too far away, but just getting that daylight, even if it's not sunny, just getting that daylight exposure in the morning. Now, I think the harder part is the nighttime. Because after the sunset, we just have so many different things, lights and screens and all of that on, that I think that's the part that's actually harder to mitigate for us. So what we recommend is just to try to switch off any unnecessary lights in the home after sunset. So if there's, hallway lights, if you don't need that, as long as it's safe, or just finding a way to dim that a little bit. If there are lamps and things like that you need to have on in the evening, choose a warmer tone to the bulb if you can change that. Remember that in nature, after sunset, the lights are all kind of orangey color. So like the sunset, the sky turns kind of orangey or red, or candlelight is kind of that orange color. That type of light doesn't trigger your daylight hormones, and it doesn't disrupt your melatonin production. So if it's safe to use candlelight, that would be a great way to light your home at night and not disrupt your sleep. And of course, you've heard this before, avoiding the blue light from screens, especially in the evening, especially right before bedtime. And this is something that I definitely recommend trying to do as much as possible. But I know, and I'm certainly one of these people, where there's certain times where I have to use check my email or be on FaceTime with family. And in that time, I use blue light blocking glasses. Here are mine right here. When I wear these, everything turns orange, as you could probably imagine. And interestingly, when I wear them, even right now in the middle of the day, I can almost sort of feel sleepy when I wear them. But that's a way that I could just protect myself from a little bit of that blue light coming from the screens. Another thing that you can do, of course, is using different apps on the phone and your devices. So on the Apple devices have night mode, which is probably already automatically built into your iPhone. But on Android devices, you can use the Flux app, Flux app. So you can put that, you can set it to sunset, and it will generally make your screen look a little bit orangey, just like you're wearing those glasses. As a side note, if you're looking for more information about circadian rhythms, the book Circadian Code is a really nice summary of all of these things and some of the current research on this. That's by Dr. Sachin Panda. It was the results of his research from his team that actually resulted in night mode on the Apple devices. So these can have really, research can have very practical application in this case. Another thing that you might want to be looking at is making sure your room is as dark as possible. Using blackout curtains, maybe you need to wear a mask, and then removing any unnecessary electronics. There's multiple reasons for this, but one of them is that there might be some extra little light coming from there. I wanted to mention one more thing. When it comes to light, our bodies are meant to be living and meant to be energized by light. One study in, I think it was 2014, showed that this was an animal study, I believe, where the animals ate chlorophyll-rich foods, and then when they were exposed to sunlight, their cells actually made more energy, like directly from the sunlight. So this is like plants, right? If you're familiar with light therapy or photobiomodulation, this is the same kind of response that we get with the laser and the LED light. But we can do that by eating chlorophyll-rich foods and having exposure to sunlight. Chlorophyll-rich foods, there's some of these are sea vegetables, Really anything that has that dark green pigment on it. So green leafy vegetables, chlorella or spirulina are really good sources of that. Sprouts in your diet. I believe Dr. Lee is going to do a sprouting 101 of live chat coming up here. I think that was next week. So you can learn about that. Those are great places to get started. And essentially, of course, all of those green vegetables have tons of benefits like vitamin C and folate and all of those things. But here's another one that's directly related to energy production. You can become like a plant. You can have the chlorophyll in, get exposure to sunlight, and get energy production just like that. Another way to cue your circadian rhythm is eating. When we talked about this, I think it was on Wednesday, talking about gut health. So eating can be a really great way to make sure that your timing of your daytime hormones are only during the daytime and your nighttime hormones are only at night. And eating is a daytime cue. So that's why we're talking about eating basically during the daylight hours and not eating too late at night after it's dark. Movement is another cue as well. Movement, so of course we're talking about exercise. Ideally, that would be during the day would be great, because that's movement is a daytime cue. But even notice how you're moving around the house at night. Slow down a little bit as you dim the lights. Slow down the movement of your body as well. Follow that same sort of pattern of slowing things down, of going into night mode, essentially. All right, and the last cue, and this is an important one too, is temperature. So we've talked about light, we've talked about eating, movement, and last one is temperature. Temperature changes naturally in our body from daytime to nighttime. Generally, warmer in the day, cooler at night. Of course, knowing this, you can set your thermostat to mimic that pattern. So warmer during the day, cooler at night. And generally, I've asked this, so how cool at night? This is something that you're going to have to experiment with and to see what works for you. But generally somewhere around 17 to 21 degrees. I tend to go towards the cooler end of that spectrum. That's 17 to 21 degrees Celsius, which is about 64 to 70 Fahrenheit, and adjust that as needed, right? Cooling down aspect, that shift when your temperature is going down, is what encourages us to feel sleepy. So another way to take advantage of that cue is to actually have a warm bath about 1 or 2 hours before bed. And this seems counterintuitive because a warm bath will obviously make us feel warmer. But after the bath, your body temperature is going to be warm, but afterwards you're going to have that exaggerated reduction of temperature. And that's actually going to exaggerate that sleepy feeling. Again, something that I found so helpful for falling asleep and having a deeper sleep. All right. So again, with the circadian rhythm, most important, light, movement, eating, and temperature. Those are the biggest cues to look at when we're trying to balance out our circadian rhythm. When we're looking at whole body systems and how we can really support our body to make energy as efficiently as possible, we can go back to cooking energetically. So looking at the warmth of the food that we're eating, making sure that it matches our digestive fire if it's weak, choosing warmer foods and warmer herbs, even warmer drinks. Generally, you do want to just keep the fluid intake minimum when you're eating, again, because of course fluids snuff out the fire. So we want to just keep fluid intake, like water intake, to be mostly away from foods. But if you are having some fluid in your food, keep it warmer temperature would usually be better. And that is one of those things that you can get energy quite quickly, and your stomach feels better as well. I also have people tell me that their hands and feet are not as cold when they start to eat warmer foods too. Secondly, we talked about calming stress using daily and intentional gratitude practice, like doing journaling before bed, or just in the moment when you're feeling negative feelings, trying to remember that question of what is the opportunity in the moment, and then feeling grateful for that opportunity. This is a great exercise and a great intentional practice to do. And then lastly, strengthening the circadian rhythms, one of the most important things we can do to coordinate all our hormones so that they can work together so our energy can be produced efficiently and for a long term. Looking at light cues, looking at eating, movement, and temperature for that. All right, now I know that there's a lot of little sort of tips in there. All of this will be on a summary, so you can certainly go back and just make sure that you've covered some of these things. I definitely encourage you to look at this when you're struggling with energy. These are the things that you want to make sure that you've got covered, that you're not overtaxing your stress system, that you've got your day and night hormones balanced and well coordinated. You're getting as much energy as you can from your food while you're working on investigating cellular issues, like maybe there's iron issues or thyroid issues or even mitochondrial issues. Those are all important things to look at, but if we focus too quickly and too much on those things without taking care of these other global issues, it's going to be really hard to get to that next stage of healing. So this is where I would start with that. I hope that was helpful for you. I hope you're able to get some valuable information from that and help with your hormones. We will continue to be here on Saturday doing the masterclass at 12 o'clock. And of course, Monday to Friday doing our Facebook lives at 4 o'clock. Please feel free to share this link to this video with your family and friends or whoever you think could use it. Thanks for everybody for joining me here today. And we'll see you next time. All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.